Hello, this is The Brief, a contract podcast short where we take the big conversations about leadership and work, distill them, and we deliver them to you with the time it takes to finish your coffee. Today, we discuss a fundamental requirement for effective leadership: courage. Courage is the quiet force that separates people who hold positions of leadership from those who actually lead. Here, I'm not talking about the obvious and sometimes self proclaimed courage that we often see, but the everyday courage to make decisions that matter is what I'm referring to. To speak when silence is easier and to act when the outcome is not guaranteed. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the willingness to move forward with it. So, let's discuss the four types of courage needed for exemplary leadership. First, the courage to stand alone. In 1955, Rosa Parks didn't know she was making history. She wasn't trying to start a movement. She was simply tired, tired of giving in. Her act of courage wasn't loud, but it was firm. And it reminds us that leadership often begins with one person deciding, this isn't acceptable. Modern research backs this up. A 2020 study in the Journal of Applied Psychology found that employees are more likely to follow leaders who take principled stands, even when those stands are unpopular, but it signals integrity and consistency. Courageous leaders don't wait for consensus, they actually create it. The second type of courage, the courage to be wrong. One of the most underrated forms of leadership courage is the courage to admit mistakes. The CEO of Microsoft once said that leaders must shift from a know it all mindset to a learn it all mindset. That shift requires humility, and humility requires courage. A Google project, a multi year massive study on high performing teams, found that the number one predictor of team success wasn't talent or experience, it was actually psychological safety. And psychological safety starts when leaders say things like, I don't know, or I was wrong, or let's figure this out together. When leaders model learning, teams model innovation. The third type of courage, the courage to have hard conversations. Leadership courage shows up most clearly in the conversations we'd rather avoid. Kim Scott, author of Radical Candor, tells a story about a manager who once pulled her aside after a presentation and said, you're too smart to sound this stupid. It was harsh, but it was honest, and it changed her career. She realized that caring personally and challenging directly are not the opposites, they are partners. Research from Gallup shows that employees who receive regular, candid feedback are 3.5 times more likely to be engaged at work. Yet most leaders avoid tough conversations because they fear conflict. Courageous leaders don't avoid discomfort, they actually use it. Fourth type of courage, the courage to act before you're ready. In 1962, President John F. Kennedy announced the goal of landing a man on the moon. At the time, NASA had no plan, no technology, and no roadmap, but they had courage and a vision bold enough to pull them forward. Leadership courage is often the courage to take the first step before the path is clear. A study from the University of Pennsylvania found that leaders who take decisive action in uncertainty build more trust than leaders who wait for perfect information. People don't need leaders who are always right. They do, however, need leaders who are willing to move. Courage is motion. So, leadership courage isn't dramatic, it's daily. It's the courage to stand alone, to be wrong, to have hard conversations, and to act before you feel ready. And here's the truth: courage isn't something you're born with, it's something you build. One decision, one conversation, one moment at a time. Leadership isn't about being fearless, it's about choosing to lead even when you're not. So tune in next time for another episode of The Brief. as we continue to explore human resource competencies necessary to build and maintain effective organizations. Also, please be sure to follow the Contract Podcast. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, and at our website, thecontractpodcast.com. Thank you for tuning in.